This is Boomer Time, a proactive podcast for baby boomers, about baby boomers, and for people taking care of baby boomers. If that sounds like you, then you're in the right place. I'm Nancy Kogar, an elder law attorney and aging advocate, and this podcast was made just for you. Remember, though, the things we discuss here are not intended to be legal advice, and no attorney-client relationship is established by this podcast. Well, hello, my friends. This is your host, Nancy Kogar, and this is Boomer Time. I hope you're doing well today. Retirement. We all pine for it for so long in our younger years. I'm guilty of it. And those will be the days when I don't have to go to work, deal with all that traffic and all that stress. And then that day comes. And before too long, we're often finding ourselves struggling for purpose or what's next in our lives. Boredom. So experts suggest some of the following. Keep learning, volunteer, get involved, stay strong and healthy. We've talked about that on the podcast. Helping in your community, even mentoring. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm so very happy to have you here. And I'm welcoming some very dear guests today. And they have a special story to share with you about purpose that came into their own lives later in life. And they were not expecting it, I don't think, at least to the degree that they've had. So they are a husband and wife from here in Chattanooga. And I'm excited to share their story. And I hope that it might inspire you also in some search for greater meaning. So please welcome Fred and Libby Deering. Hi, guys.
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. First off, can you tell us, and I've been along with you, so I know what you do, but tell us a little bit about what it is that you found and dedicated your life to later in your years here.
Well, it was not something I expected or even searched for. I was sent to South Sudan, and I did not want to go.
Tell people where that is, because I think they may not know.
It's on the continent of Africa, south of Sudan, which is south of Sudan. At that time, they were one country. And we went over right after they had fought the war and separated. And due to my experience in Vietnam, I didn't want to see that kind of poverty. I had smelled it, tasted it. I didn't want to go. And I was on a walk to Emmaus and had the prayer team and went in and told them I needed prayer in the worst way because the bishop had called me and wanted me to go. And they prayed, I prayed, and I had to call the bishop back the next morning. And the answer to the prayer was just kind of suck it up, Deering, get on the plane and go. And I did. And met those people and fell in love. My heart was broken and I went back. And then it was Libby's turn.
Yes, Libby.
Yes, I just looked at his pictures. I saw those beautiful faces of the children. I heard the heartbreaking stories, and I prayed, God, if there's any way you can use me, send me.
Careful what you ask for.
Yes. I didn't realize to the extent to which he would answer that prayer. But he did, and I ended up going 7 times short term. And on that last trip, I remember sitting on the plane, and I was just crying my eyes out because I thought there is so much work to be done. How can I leave? And so then Fred and I and talked to the bishop, and we we ended up moving over there in 2011.
And that was not easy, I'm sure.
No.
I think it was harder on our families than it was us. I mean, we were ready to go. Of course, we had to sell a house, and we had to, store all of our things, and we had to, do all of the logistics. But we were ready. We wanted to go, and our parents, our friends, they were still like, "Are you sure about this?" And we were like, "Yes, we know this is what we're supposed to do."
And in going there and settling there, that there was still very much conflict going on.
Yes. The war technically was over, but you had various militias, and that's still the present condition. You had tribalism, you had tribes still conflicting with each other. That's still going on. But the UN was there, UN peacekeepers were there. So it was still going on. I'll have to tell you a funny story if I can. The UN would train us for being present there, and if you ever encountered hostile groups, what you were to do. Well, I didn't undergo the training. I have PTSD, and I could not comply. If they attacked me, I know what I would do. I would have fought them. Knowing that they were friendlies, I still would have fought them. So I didn't go. Libby went. And it's a very realistic exercise. And they stopped them, told them to get out of the vehicle. They were armed, threw them on the ground, and had them down there and commanded them to sing their national anthem. Libby started out with a robust version of "My Country, 'Tis of Thee." She couldn't remember the Star-Spangled Banner.
Hey, at least I didn't sing Rocky Top.
Yeah.
But
That's the
that
Tennessee
was
anthem.
the training that we did. We had, and our compound had armed guards, and we still do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, you still have all that conflict. Poverty drives people to steal to survive, so they will break in, and it's just a sad situation. But you're there with them, and that means a lot.
So really, though, it's the people that were there, including, and I think this is hard for people to understand. It was hard for me to understand that there are children there who have been orphaned through the conflict, that people came into their villages, killed everyone in sight, right? And then the children were left and defend for themselves, and you all really inherited a family of orphan children.
Yes, there were children there that had been abandoned by family members. There were what they call over there double orphan, where the mother and father were both deceased. There were a single orphan who may have a living mother, but that mother had lots of children. She couldn't afford to take care of them. So they're considered orphan as well. It was not uncommon to see a child of 10 years old being in charge of a household. And it was heartbreaking. They had, one time we were over there and we asked, what kind of things would you like? What would you like to have? Soap.
Yeah.
Soap.
Different perspective.
Yes. They did not even have a bar of soap for bathing, for dishwashing, for laundry. They did all of that in dirty water. They drank dirty water. Yeah. and that was another part of what we did at first was we built drill wells.
Yeah, and that's still a big part of what you're
Still
doing.
a big clean water is just it's life. Clean water is life.
So you started out in South Sudan, but now you're in Uganda.
Yes.
Can you explain how that happened?
Well, I think Libby can better explain that because she was the one that got evacuated out. I was on the other side of the border waiting for her.
Yes, we had heard rumors that war was coming, that there was going to be some fighting. And so there were other expats there that we met on Sunday nights and had, devotions and things. Well, that night we planned how we were going to handle this. And so that was on a Sunday night. And on Monday morning, we had decided we were going to go out on Tuesday. We would just take a plane and go on Tuesday. Well, Monday morning, our staff came in and they said, pack your bags and go. They said, there's already active fighting in Lanya County, which is where one of our orphanages was. And they said, it's not safe for you to be here. Well, they didn't tell us just to pack our bags and go. They took us. They risked their lives to make sure that we got across the border. And then the children were in the orphanages. And due to just the sheer number, we couldn't get to them and get them out. But they were able to come out a few weeks later. Now, at that time, we had the 2 orphanages. And the one in Ye County, they got to come out. The one in Lanya County had to stay there. And those children had to go into the bush and live for a while. They went through all kinds of trauma. The fighting, they were hungry, no food. It was sad.
Yeah.
It was just really sad. But anyway, we got to Uganda and we thought we would just be there, a few days.
Yeah.
So us and the doctors that were with us and another missionary, we rented an apartment and we stayed. Well, then it finally looked like we were going to be there a while. So we started making other plans, and that's when we rented a compound.
Right. So you've been there for years now, right? And you have that compound, and you've maintained this relationship with these children and the others that brought the children over, and these people. I've met them. I've been there. I've had the opportunity to be there, and they are the most loving, peaceful, kind, soft-spoken, and all they want is to be educated and go home.
Yes.
It's just amazing.
If I may, so we're 14 minutes in, so I didn't want to break the testimonial since it took, since we have multiple viewpoints. Let's go ahead and take a short break and then come back.
And then I could talk about that.
And you can continue your thought.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
You're good.
I didn't add that the ones from Lanya County, what we had to go through to get them out. And I don't know if this would go in there or not, but we were in Uganda and we were, do I need to stop?
Oh, no, you're good. You just let Nancy go ahead and say we're going to take a short break.
Oh.
Go ahead and say that, and then we'll cut it, and then we'll start back up.
Okay.
So just if you don't mind, Nancy, just go ahead and say let's take a short break, and then when we get back, we will continue learning more about.
I so appreciate you all sharing your story, and this is, I hope, going to impact people out there. And there's more to it, because then there's this whole family life in Uganda. So we're going to take a short break, and then when we come back, maybe we can talk about something. Welcome back to Boomer Time. This is Nancy Kogar, as you know, and I am joined today by my very good friends, Fred and Libby Deering. And they are sharing what is probably not the norm for those of you listening out there about finding purpose in your later years. But I do hope that, it's such a wonderful story, and I do hope that it inspires people to think more about what they can do. And you started out in South Sudan, a new country in Africa that was a democracy. Military war, strife broke out, escaped to Uganda along with the people there. And then, before the break, we were talking about how it became longer than you anticipated. And then you really settled a compound or a home, safe place for them there.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure that's not what you anticipated when you became involved.
No, it wasn't. The sad part is that we had built two homes for children, and it was not an orphanage. It was like residential foster care. It was, both places were compounds. We had homes. They had mamas that lived there, stayed with them. And so, for the first time in their lives, they had stability.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, their lives are turned upside down again.
Yeah. And they are so resilient. I had the opportunity to travel with you and met these young adults now. Mm-hmm. And some of them have children now. And then the older adults, and they are, if I had to describe them, I'd say soft-spoken, kind, peaceful, and just loving.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and grateful.
Yes.
Their biggest desire is to go back home.
Yeah.
And right now they are there trying to dig gardens wherever the host community allows them to have land. They're not in the best land, but they do the best they can. They can go back and forth across the border. It's dangerous. And they can dig gardens and plant them over there, but people, the army, the rebels, other groups would steal the produce, harvest it, and or kill them. And so it's just such a struggle with food insecurity now, with climate change. I just talked to one of our pastors. Their gardens are burning up. Their animals, that the goats and other animals that they raise for food die because they don't have anything to eat. And so they're dying. And so it's their struggle for survival is ongoing.
Yeah.
And in the midst of that, they want to be educated. They want to learn. And our pastors, when I first went over there in 2006, every one of them were illiterate. And if you heard a pastor preach, he might have a Bible open and would read. You think he was reading, but he would be reading a scripture. Actually, he'd be quoting. He may not even have the Bible open to that particular gospel or book, but it's what they have phenomenal memories. And it's what at some point he had heard, and then he would preach. But he was preaching a sermon he had heard. That's what I found. And their biggest desire at that point was, please educate us and develop leadership. And at this time, we have a core of pastors who are educated and literate, who've been to theological college. I was replaced in 2023 by a South Sudanese, finally. I thought that would happen 5 years ago, but it took 11. But now they're doing great. Even in the midst of all these challenges, they're doing wonderful. Planting churches. They came out with 6 churches. They have 23 now. And Faustino,
Wow.
who replaced me, said, I want 50.
Huh.
And that will happen at
Yeah.
some point. And they were talking to Libby today and telling her what all they had been doing. And we're going back in December. And he told her, he says, well, when you come back, you're going to spend Christmas here. Oh, I'm sorry. And so they're doing great.
Yeah.
But the challenges are still there. Preventable diseases, malaria, HIV/AIDS, then the water,
Yeah.
that is still, and then the lack thereof. But the most important thing is, through the years, I've learned mission is not about the project or the building. It's a relationship. Just sitting there with a person. And that's most important to them. If they see you, it gives them hope and motivation to live another day.
Yeah. I think I spent, what was it, 8-9 days there. I will never forget any of those people.
I know.
You know, they're just,
They steal your heart.
yeah. And they still write to me on Facebook. And
Yes.
I think about them often. And, you know, it's life-changing. And it's amazing what they've been able to accomplish amid all that strife and difficulty.
Yes.
I did want to talk about kind of what you've been able to do and funding source, and then I want to also talk about some of the housing that you've built with what you're doing too. But can you tell folks where are we now as far as continuing the work for them and the hope that they want to go home?
Well, funding, as with any other organization, church, NGO, 501c3, funding is a challenge, and throughout the world, because everybody is struggling. I don't know a place on this planet where somebody isn't struggling, and so it's funding and helping those people. In our particular context, we cannot take teams over there and they do Vacation Bible School. It's a refugee camp. It's under the UN, and you would end up with a huge crowd, and Army
Too
would
many
come in
people
and disperse. So we can't do Vacation Bible School. We can't go in, and you can't go in there and help them build a building. The government, you're taking jobs away. And that would be true here too. So, and then so what we can do is go over there and be with them, sometimes do some trainings, and then come back and share the story. Every little bit counts. Somebody say, well, I can only give $1 or $2. Well, that $1 or $2 can save a life over there. They can buy some food. They can and help their economy. And so we
well, a good example of that is, Libby, you like to make jewelry, or you started to make jewelry, and you've done that, and I want you to tell the story. But for me to go over there and then see the houses or the shelters that you built with the money that you got from your jewelry, that's a good example, Fred, of saying a small amount can go a long way there. And tell me about that, Libby.
Well, I have now 29 children that the church is supporting. And they are older children now. You know, we started with little ones, and our baby was 2.5 years old. Well, now my baby's 14. And I have one young man who is now in the advanced level, which is kind of the equivalent to our community colleges.
Mhm.
So he will be entering university in another 2 years.
That's amazing.
And then I've got 17 that are in secondary school. So, I started thinking, how am I going to send all of these children to either university or vocational school? Our aim is to get them training, provide them with life skills so that they can have their own life.
Mhm.
They can, have their own families. And so I thought, well, I like to make jewelry. So I started making jewelry and then selling it at church bazaars, in the, community fairs, whatever. I was able to sell enough to build the houses for the children to live in with their guardians.
It's awesome.
Now that their guardian, that's a whole other long story. But to just shorten it, I will say their guardians are now our staff.
Yeah.
And they just willingly took the kids in, but they didn't have room for them.
No.
They didn't have the resources for them, but we support them. The church supports them. So we built the housing, and each staff member, which we had 6 guardians, the 6 guardians, we built 2 rooms at each home. And each home now has 6 children.
And they've got wells there, so they've got
They
clean water. And
They do.
mhm.
They have clean water, and we pay for their
medical care,
medical
food,
and everything.
education.
Yeah, you're making a difference. Okay. This is the kind of story that deserves a lot more time than we're giving it today. But I did want to say a couple things. That there's photos that you've given us that are online. They'll be on my website at nancykogar.com. But more importantly, I think, is how can people find out more about what you're doing and the circumstance there in Uganda, and then really kind of the greater picture of South Sudan?
For the church, go to holston.org. Mike Sluter, who's Reverend Mike Sluter, and also the Holston Foundation, Paul Bowman, Paul Bowman at Holston Foundation, and .org. And they can answer any questions, direct you to sites. You can email me, but that's who I'll end up directing you to. And then Libby has her websites, and I'll let her tell you how to contact her with the children.
I have a Facebook page. I don't have a website. That's on my wish list. But the Facebook is Made for Grace. And then an email, if you need to get in touch with us, is ssmadeforgrace@gmail.com.
And we'll put that up on the website too. Okay. This is such an important story, and it's hard for people here, I think, to imagine what's happening in other parts of the world. But these are, children that just got put in a circumstance that they didn't have anything to do with, and then they were just ripped away from their homes.
And this story, we focus on South Sudan because that's where we were, that's who we're in love with. But this story is repeated in our own communities. It's repeated in Gaza, Israel, Ukraine, on the continent of Africa, just throughout the world. The children, I'm sorry, I'm pounding on the table. The children did not choose this life.
No.
And so it's our responsibility, I think, as adults to equip them and help them be the people God created them to be, and make resources, opportunities available for all, and feed them. Don't let those children starve.
Yeah, and their bright little faces when they're celebrating. It's just something
They
you
love
forget.
to eat. You have to come over there and eat
Yeah.
with us when they
Yeah.
it's such a joy. It really is.
And one thing I don't think we mentioned was that you call your ministry the Children of Grace, right? Yeah.
That grace is an acronym. God receives all children equally, because tribalism is very much a problem there, and tribe did not matter. You know, ability, disability, male, female, it didn't matter. All children are received by God equally.
Well, I hope that this helps to promote some new, fresh awareness for you. I also hope people will be praying for you, because I believe that helps. And I hope people will reach out to you, maybe buy some of your jewelry.
Yes.
And then get in touch with the Holston Foundation that does good work, and can bring more resources over. And I would like you all to just, I'm going to give you an open invitation. So if something's going on or there's a need, or you're welcome here. So you just let me know, okay? Because we're a community.
Thank you.
So, but thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So you listening out there, you've heard it right here. There's purpose in your life. So go out and find it, right? Maybe
It'll find you.
it'll find you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. And we will see you next time.